What if the person who acts like they don't need you is actually the one thinking about you the most at night? What if the one who pulls away the hardest is the one lying awake replaying every single moment with you? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share is going to completely change how you see avoidant behavior forever. And if you've ever loved someone who ran from you, this is going to hit differently than anything you've ever heard before. Before we go any further, drop the word night in the comments right now. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do it. We are working toward 1,000 subscribers and we are genuinely not close yet. Every single sub matters more than you know. Now let's get into this. So let's talk about what actually happens when an avoidant person misses you. And I mean really misses you. Not the surface level stuff. Not the stuff they'll ever admit to anyone, including themselves. I'm talking about the raw, quiet, private moments that happen when the world goes dark and there's no distraction left to hide behind. Because here's the thing about avoidant people that almost nobody talks about. They feel everything. Every single thing. They feel it deeply. The difference between them and you is not that they feel less. The difference is that they have spent years, sometimes decades, building an internal system that tells them feeling is dangerous, that needing someone is weakness, that missing someone puts you in a vulnerable position that will eventually destroy you. And they believe that story. They have lived inside that story for so long that it feels like the truth. So when they miss you, when they genuinely ache for you, they don't reach out. They don't call. They don't text. They do something else entirely. And that something else is what we are going to talk about today. Let's start from the beginning so you really understand what's happening inside this person's mind. The avoidant person in your life, whether that's an ex, a partner who keeps pulling away, or someone who runs hot and cold with you, did not become avoidant because they are broken or bad or incapable of love. They became avoidant because at some point in their early life, probably very early, love came with a cost. Maybe the people who were supposed to love them were inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes there, and sometimes completely gone. Or maybe expressing need was met with dismissal, cry and get ignored, ask for comfort and get told to toughen up, show vulnerability and watch the person you love pull away from you. So their nervous system did what nervous systems do. It adapted. It learned. It said, okay, I see how this works. If I need people, I get hurt. So I will stop needing people. I will become the person who doesn't need anything from anyone. I will become self-sufficient. I will become the person who is always fine. And they got really good at it. So good that even they started to believe it. They walk through their days feeling independent and in control. And when someone gets close, when someone starts to matter, something in them gets triggered. That old alarm system goes off. It says danger. This person is getting too close. If you let them in completely, you will be destroyed when they leave. So push them away before they can leave on their own. And they do. They pull back. They go cold. They create distance. They find reasons to be busy, reasons to be irritated, reasons why this relationship is moving too fast or why they just need space. And you, standing on the other side of that wall, wonder what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Their wall was built before you got there. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's what nobody is telling you about what happens inside the avoidant person after they've pushed you away, or after you've finally walked away, or after another night has gone by where they acted like you don't matter to them. The sun goes down, the distractions run out, the phone gets quieter, the work is done, the podcast ends, the show is over, and they are alone with themselves. And that's when it starts. The first thing that happens is something they don't even recognize as missing you at first. It shows up as restlessness. They can't settle. They move from room to room. They pick up their phone and put it back down. They open their fridge and close it without taking anything. They feel a low-grade discomfort that they can't quite name, and they don't want to name it because naming it means admitting something. They are not going to admit it yet. So they try to outrun it. They scroll through their phone. They put on something to watch. They try to distract themselves into numbness. And sometimes it works for a while. But then something happens. A song comes on that reminds them of you. Or they see a meme you would have found funny. Or they read something and their first instinct is to send it to you. And for just a second, before the wall goes back up, they feel it. They feel the pull toward you. And that pull terrifies them. Because for an avoidant person, longing is not just an emotion. It is evidence of vulnerability. And vulnerability in their internal world is the beginning of pain. So they feel that pull, and then they do something very specific. They turn toward anything that replaces it. They will reach out to someone else, not because that person matters, but because the contact quiets the ache temporarily. They'll text a friend. They'll respond to someone who's been in their messages. They'll scroll dating apps not because they're looking, but because looking gives them a feeling of control that longing does not. This is not them moving on. This is them managing. This is them doing what they have always done, which is choosing the illusion of control over the reality of emotion. But here's the part that people miss. While they're doing all of that, while they're distracting and managing and deflecting, a part of them is thinking about you. It is not the loud part of their mind. It is the quiet part, the part that they don't let speak very often. And that part is doing a very specific thing at night. It is replaying. Avoidant people, when they miss someone, replay moments. They don't think about the future with you because thinking about the future means allowing hope, and hope means risk. But the past feels safer because it already happened and they can't be hurt by it anymore. So they go back there. They replay the good moments, the specific ones, not the big dramatic ones, but the small, quiet ones that snuck through their defenses when they weren't paying attention. The way you laughed at something unexpected. The time you sat together in comfortable silence and it felt like something they had never let themselves have before. The conversation that went deeper than they meant to let it go. The moment where you looked at them in a way that made them feel genuinely seen. Those moments live inside them. And at night, when the armor is down just a little bit, they go back to those moments. They don't reach out, but they go back there. And then they do something else that is so quietly heartbreaking that I want you to really hear this. They check on you without contacting you. They look at your social media. They watch your stories. They look at your profile not to engage, but to see, to know you're there, to confirm that you exist and that you are okay, and that they haven't completely lost access to you, even if they are the one who created the distance, even if they are the one who pulled away. They still look. Because here's what avoidants want that they will almost never ask for. They want proximity without vulnerability. They want to feel close to you from a safe enough distance that they won't get hurt. They want the warmth of you without having to risk the exposure that comes with truly reaching for you. So they hover, they orbit, they watch from a distance, and they tell themselves it doesn't mean anything. They tell themselves they're just curious. They tell themselves they're fine. And then they put the phone down and lie in the dark, and the quiet gets loud. This is the moment. This is the moment where everything they've been pushing down all day starts to surface. And they lie there and they feel it. This mix of longing and fear and anger and grief. And the anger is actually important to understand. The anger is often directed at themselves. Not at you, at themselves. Because on some level they know. They know what they did. They know they pulled away from something real. They know that the distance they created was protection, not wisdom. And there is a version of them lying there in the dark that hates the part of themselves that can't let people in. But hating that part of themselves doesn't change it overnight. And so they lie there in this complicated storm of feelings. And they don't reach out because reaching out feels like losing. and they don't know how to be in a relationship without keeping a part of themselves protected, and so they just stay in the storm alone, which is, when you think about it, the most avoidant thing of all. Staying alone in pain rather than risking connection. Choosing the familiar hurt over the unfamiliar risk. That is the loop they live in. And they have been living in it long before you came along. Now I want to talk to you directly for a moment. Because if you are watching this, there is a real person in your life who does this. And you have probably spent so much time trying to figure out how to reach them, how to say the right thing, how to make them feel safe enough to let you in. And I understand that impulse completely. When we love someone, we want to be the one who finally breaks through. We want to be the exception. We want to prove that love can be enough. And I need to be honest with you about something, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort right now. You cannot love someone out of avoidance. You cannot be consistent enough, or patient enough, or understanding enough to heal their attachment wounds for them. That is not how healing works. Their avoidance is not a test that you pass by trying harder. It is a deep pattern that lives inside their nervous system, and it can only change when they choose to look at it and do the work to change it themselves. What you can do is understand what's actually happening so that you stop personalizing it. Because here is the most important thing I'm going to say today. Their avoidance is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their wound. When they pull away, it does not mean you are not enough. When they go cold, it does not mean what you had wasn't real. When they can't reach out, even though they're lying awake missing you, it does not mean they don't care. It means they are trapped. Trapped inside a pattern that was built to protect them and that is now isolating them in the loneliest way imaginable. They are in a prison of their own construction, and they have convinced themselves the prison is safety. And here is the devastating irony. The people who need connection the most are often the ones least able to ask for it. Avoidants are not cold people. They are people who had to become cold in order to survive something. And that survival strategy is still running even when the original threat is long gone. So they lie awake missing you, and they don't text, and they scroll your profile, and they replay the good moments, and they feel the pull, and then they suppress the pull, and then they feel guilty for suppressing it, and then the morning comes, and they put the armor back on, and they move through their day as if none of it happened, and the cycle continues. Now let's talk about something really practical, because understanding all of this is one thing, but what do you actually do with it? If you are currently in a relationship with someone avoidant, and you're watching this trying to understand them, the first thing I want you to understand is that pressure almost never works with an avoidant person. The more you pursue, the more they pull back. This is not because they don't care. It is because pursuit triggers their alarm system. When someone comes toward them too fast or too intensely, their nervous system reads it as threat, even when it isn't. Even when you are doing everything right. Even when you are the safest, most loving, most understanding person in the world. The approach itself can trigger the retreat. This does not mean you should play games. This does not mean you should manufacture distance to manipulate them into coming closer. What it means is that you need to genuinely develop a life that doesn't orbit entirely around them. You need to have things that matter to you outside of this relationship. Passions, friendships, goals. A sense of self that exists independently of whether they are warm or cold toward you on any given day. And this is not strategy. This is survival. Because if you don't have that, you will slowly lose yourself trying to manage someone else's emotional landscape. And that is not love. That is disappearing. The second thing I want you to understand is that an avoidant person responds better to consistency over time than to grand gestures or intense conversations. They don't trust big emotional moments because big emotional moments have historically been followed by loss or disappointment in their experience. What builds trust with an avoidant person is quiet, steady, reliable presence. Being someone who says what they mean and means what they say. Being someone who doesn't suddenly flip or become unpredictable. Being someone whose mood and affection doesn't depend entirely on what the avoidant person does. That kind of stability is deeply attractive to an avoidant, even if they never tell you that, even if they never thank you for it, even if it seems like it's not landing. It is landing. It's just landing in a place they haven't opened yet. The third thing is about your own emotional expression. Avoidants often shut down in the face of high emotional intensity because their nervous system can't regulate the input. So if you've been having big emotional conversations with them, conversations that escalate quickly, that involve a lot of crying or anger or ultimatums, those conversations are likely triggering more retreat than opening. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you find ways to express them that feel safer for both of you, calmer, more measured. You can be completely honest without being overwhelming. You can say, "I miss you," without saying, "I need you to fix this right now." You can say, "This bothered me," without saying, "You always do this and I don't know if I can keep doing this." The content is the same. The delivery changes everything. Now, if you are on the other side of this, meaning you have stepped back or walked away from an avoidant person, and you're watching this trying to understand what they might be feeling now, I want to speak to that too. Here is what is very likely happening in them right now. The moment you gave them real space, not strategic space, but actual distance where they genuinely felt your absence, something shifted. Because here's the thing about avoidance that seems counterintuitive until you understand the attachment dynamic. They often don't feel the real depth of their feelings until the relationship is actually at risk of being lost. When you were there and available and pursuing, their nervous system was in protection mode. The wall was up. The distance felt manageable. But when you actually stepped back, when you actually became less available, when you stopped being the person who always reached out first, their system recalibrated. And what they started to feel is the absence of something that mattered. That's when the nighttime replaying intensifies. That's when the checking your profile becomes more frequent. That's when the restlessness gets louder. Because the thing they were protecting themselves from feeling is now impossible to avoid. And they still might not reach out. That's the brutal truth. Even when the feeling is undeniable, the fear can be louder. The pattern is deeply ingrained. The thought of reaching out and being vulnerable, the thought of saying, "I was wrong," or "I miss you," or "I made a mistake," that feels so enormous to them that they choose to stay in the discomfort of absence rather than risk the exposure of honesty. But some of them do reach out. Some of them reach the point where the longing becomes louder than the fear. And when they do, it is usually not with a big declaration. It is usually something small. A meme, a memory, "Hey, I was thinking about this thing." Something with plausible deniability. Something they can retreat from if it doesn't go well. That small reach is not nothing. For an avoidant person, that small reach is enormous. It means they sat with their fear and did it anyway. It means something got through the wall. And what you do in that moment matters more than almost anything else in the dynamic. Because if you respond with relief so intense that it overwhelms them, if you immediately leap back into the level of emotional intensity that existed before, they will likely retreat again. The window is fragile. And it requires a gentleness that honors how hard it was for them to open it. You can be warm without being desperate. You can be glad without making them responsible for your emotional state. You can open the door without rushing through it. This is the skill, and it is genuinely a skill. It takes practice and self-awareness and a lot of internal work to respond to an avoidant person's reaching out without either punishing them for the time they were gone or rewarding them in a way that collapses the space too quickly. Now, I want to zoom out for a second because I think we need to look at this from a wider angle. We have spent a lot of time inside the avoidant person's experience tonight, And that's important because understanding someone is always the first step toward relating to them wisely. But I never want that understanding to come at the cost of your clarity about what you actually need. Because here is the question you have to ask yourself honestly. Not the version of the question that is softened by hope or by how much you love this person. The real version. Is this relationship meeting enough of your needs to be worth what it costs you? Not perfectly. Relationships are never perfect. But enough. Are you getting enough warmth, enough presence, enough reciprocity, enough emotional access that staying makes sense? Or are you slowly starving while understanding why they can't feed you? Understanding avoidance does not obligate you to endure it forever. You can have complete compassion for someone's wound and still decide that the relationship the wound creates is not something you can build a life inside of. Those two things are not in conflict. You can love someone and release them. You can understand someone and choose yourself. That is not giving up. That is wisdom. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for an avoidant person is to love them clearly enough to tell them the truth. To say, I see you. I understand why you do what you do. And I also need more than what you're giving. Not as a manipulation, not as a threat, as a simple, honest, self-respecting statement of your reality. Some avoidant people, when met with that kind of clear and loving directness, something shifts. Because in their experience, people either tolerate the distance or blow up about it. They don't often encounter someone who can hold both things at once, who can say, I care about you, and I also know what I need. That combination is rare. And for an avoidant person who has spent their life waiting for the other shoe to drop, encountering someone who is both gentle and clear and grounded in themselves can be genuinely disarming. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it is the closest thing to a real opening that exists. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. The avoidant person in your life, lying awake at night, replaying moments with you, checking your profile, feeling the pull, suppressing the pull, feeling guilty, lying in the dark in a storm of things they won't say. They feel more than they show. They miss more than they admit. They want more than they ask for. And they are, on some level, afraid of all of it. That is the truth. And it is both heartbreaking and clarifying at the same time. Because knowing this means you can stop wondering if you imagined it. You didn't. The connection was real. Their feelings are real. But real feelings and healthy relationship patterns are two different things. And only one of them is enough to build something lasting with. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. But now you have it. And that changes things. If this gave you something today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And leave that word in the comments. You know which one. We are building something here, and every person who shows up is part of that. Subscribe if you haven't yet. We need 1,000 subscribers, and we are genuinely working toward it one video at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and take care of yourself tonight.